Hello, dear friends. It's so good to be with you again. These Friday live streams are such a highlight of my month, and I am so excited to get to do this one on the Taurus New Moon happening May 19th. Have it here in the chat here. May 19th, 2023 at 10:53 a.m. Central Time at 28 degrees of Taurus. So very, very late in Taurus. The moon will move on right away into Gemini, and the sun will be moving on into Gemini in just a couple days after this new moon. So I say all of that because this is the first lunation of the swapped cycle. Like it's reversed now, where we're going to have the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th, so earlier in Taurus season. And then we're going to end Taurus season with the new moon. And for the last, year, 2 years almost, we've been having the new moons first. So we would have like a new moon at the very beginning of Taurus, and then we would have all Taurus season to kind of water those seeds. Now we're in the opposite situation where our new moons are going to start happening at the very end of the season. So it's almost like a culmination of its own. Culminations are typically more associated with full moons, and new moons are so much more about the beginning of something, or like having a seed planted. But to have the sun do the new moon, the meet up with the moon, where they're at the same spot, the sun and the moon, they have a meeting once a month. It's called the new moon. And to do that at the very end of Taurus, so fascinating that we're starting this reversal with this Taurus new moon because of how jam freaking packed Taurus is right now. And I say right now because at the time of that new moon, I'm in a cycle where I am way ahead, right? Like I'm recording this on April 28th. So the Scorpio full moon hasn't even happened yet. We're like barely into Taurus season at all. So at some point I need to like skip a Friday or something, or like do a different topic to get a little bit closer back to the energy. But as I put in the chat here, I am a 0-degree Taurus rising and a first house Taurus Jupiter. And so I really am curious, like, what are your Taurus placements? What are your favorite keywords for Taurus? I would love to hear that in the chat, and then I can respond to it a little bit later towards the end. First, I'm going to start off by telling you mine, because Taurus is one of my favorite signs, and I have to show it even an extra ounce of love because it was my least favorite sign when I very first found astrology. I was like, how freaking boring can one sign be? This is so stupid. And so I had so much like disdain and impatience for Taurus. It was too simple. I needed something more complex. And over these last almost 3 years since I first discovered astrology, I was shown my natal chart by a life coach that I hired, not knowing that she used natal charts. And then she's like, hey, look at this. And that was August of 2020, my introduction to astrology. And in these almost 3 years, Taurus has become, it's my home, and it's my absolute favorite sign to get to spend time in. It's the one I reach for the most often. And I think for me, especially, that's true because of my rising sign. Like I've heard in the astrology culture, and this just kind of clicked and kind of set off on an experiment of like, yeah, what if I did that? But I've heard a lot, like, we live like our rising sign, or like whatever's kind of going on in your first house. Like that's kind of, I am this. And the more you can line up with that first house energy, that, rising sign, whatever it's pointing at, that the more you're kind of in harmony, and that you're lined up on your path to where the entire chart, everything that's going on in the chart, can be manifested kind of in the smoothest way when we walk like our rising sign, when we lean into that. So for me, I've been leaning into Taurus, stupid Taurus. 3 years ago, that's how I felt about it. I'm like, how boring. I don't want to be a Taurus rising, especially where I was like a 0-degree Taurus rising. I'm like, I'm sure it's Aries. I'm sure it's supposed to be something more exciting than stupid old Taurus. And so I have to just like really Like, god damn. Like, at this point, simplicity is like the most beautiful thing in the world to me. I absolutely love it. And that's one of the pieces of Taurus is simplicity. It's like that's the easiest way to disconnect from Taurus is when you start adding facets and sides and but what if this and other considerations like that's like so opposite of what Taurus is. It's being. It's our breath that we don't even have to think about. It just, our lungs, they naturally seek oxygen. And after they turn that oxygen into carbon dioxide, they naturally exhale that from our body. Like our beingness is, the beingness of our planet is, it's rotating on its axis. Our hearts are pounding right here, right now. And like these are the criteria for all is well. I heard something else really cool lately that was like, our nervous systems can put us into fight or flight when we get triggered, when we have a current right now experience that reminds us of something that we went through in the past and we get scared, we get triggered into fear that it's going to be like it was that time. And so our nervous system just explodes with adrenaline and all kinds of helpful, that's the key word, helpful agents to help us defend our being. Like Taurus is so simple. But what she said there is like, so we can go so easily into fight or flight and recognizing that you're there and then ask yourself, is there blood or is there fire? And if there's not blood or fire, you're probably just fine. Like well-being is dominant. It's everything is fine. Byron Katie says, other than what you're thinking and believing, all is well. And this is Taurus, this place of knowing that all is well. You're right. That's simple. That's really simple. Like there's nothing to earn. You don't have to earn your well-being. There's nothing to possess. I mean, that's kind of the shadow side of material or shadow side of Taurus is more like a materialism or like hoarding possessions, hoarding wealth, those kinds of things. And that even is like a misunderstanding of where well-being is coming from. And I get it. Like I get why it looks like money equals well-being, but especially for those that have, danced with money, they know that that's not true. Money is a headache. Having money is complicated. Having inner peace is actually very simple. And letting yourself relax into inner peace is something that money cannot buy. No amount of money in the bank account will cause you to feel secure. If anything, the more money you have in the bank account, the more afraid you are of losing it. So, yeah, it's like, what is true security? And in my opinion, and this is for everybody in their own beautiful Taurus stubbornness to figure out for themselves, but in my opinion, true security is being able to find peace within yourself. Because at that point, if you're capable of coming into a place of still inner peace, of knowing that all is well, then it no longer matters what anybody else around you is doing or not doing, or the choices that they're making. Like if you know your own well-being, there's nothing left to worry about for yourself or anybody else. And that is, again, going back to simplicity, like all is well. Well-being is dominant. This is the heartbeat of Taurus, the breath in and out, and how natural that process is for us to live inside our well-being. That like even when we are lost in our fantasy of our thoughts and our what we're thinking and believing, which is like, everybody every day. So we're all in this together. Even when that's the case, our Taurus well-being is still taking care of us. Our lungs are still inflating and deflating. Our intestines are still chomping away at whatever we put in there. Like our brain is beating our hearts right now. That's going on. Like, I had a moment recently where this actually goes back a little bit to Aries energy. It was very near the Aries solar eclipse new moon that happened at the end of Aries. And there's I can't ever remember who all the other artists are on it with him, but I know Ram Dass is one of them. It's called Sit Around the Fire. Yeah, Sit Around the Fire by John Hopkins, Ram Dass, and East Forest. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that song. It's kind of a like guided meditation kind of a song. And I just like listen to it on repeat. I recommend it to everyone. It very much like hooks you up with like the inner spark that is your life force. And the realization that came to me was around basically answering the question, why do manifestations often feel hollow? Like, why do physical manifestations, like, you know, you get the thing that you wanted with every fiber of your being, like it burned like this passion inside of you, like you had to do this, you had to build it, you had to do it, you had to go there, you had to, and then you do it, and it's like, I mean, yeah, this is cool and this is a thing, but like, it felt so much more alive, like when it was inside of me than it does like when I'm actually inside the experience of it. And what the realization was, I channeled this through my spiritual support team. The reason for that is because it will, no matter what you manifest in this physical world, it could be winning the lottery, it could be your physical soulmate, just like the epitome of beauty, and it's all staring at you thinking you're the sexiest thing it's ever. You can manifest whatever you want in the physical, and it will never compare to the abundance and the wealth and the satisfaction we've felt in being born, in manifesting our soul's intent. God, that fucking into a physical vehicle that can go off terrain, that can be on planet, that can bump and ride and like ride the wave and like do all the things. And like our soul rejoiced at the manifestation of our body in such a way that no physical manifestation will ever live up to that. Our physical body is the pile of wealth that we all came here for. It's just like, and you have it. You have it right now. You already have it right now. We already have the most abundant thing that we will ever manifest in this life. We've had it all along. It's our physical vehicle. It makes everything possible. And like this level of simplicity, this level of like kind of, you know, moving between the shadow of Taurus being kind of attachment to the material world and the highest frequency of Taurus being inner peace. It's like total detachment from the physical world is how you achieve inner peace. You realize that nobody else has to be peaceful for me to be peaceful. And if there's no blood and there's no fire, other than what I'm thinking and believing right now, I'm okay. And to feel that viscerally in our body is I believe, the highest degree of what abundance truly is. And I've also been having a lot of reflections lately with my spiritual support team that are around the new currency. This is like something much bigger that's coming onto the planet right now and has been for a long time. I mean, I would say like decades at least, if not like hundreds of years, or maybe for all time we've been heading right here. But like there's a new currency coming onto the planet and it's non-physical. It does not have physical form. Like the true, and it's the true currency is like what it's coming to me as, and it's inner peace. It's the ability to not be a yo-yo tied to physical circumstance. And here, this is awesome because I haven't even thought about this book for a long time, but like I'm going to recommend a book called let's see, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl, I don't believe he's still alive, but I don't know that for sure. But like he was in World War II, he was in several different concentration camps all the way through the end of the war. And he was a doctor before he was put into the concentration camps. And like his whole family was killed in there. And he was a doctor, so he helped people in the concentration camps as best as he could. He eventually like kind of worked his way up and was kind of friends with, some officers or whatever. So it wasn't quite as bad for him, but still like, you're in a concentration camp, you're a slave. And then towards the end, before the war was over, he had a chance to escape and he didn't take it. He stayed with his patients. He stayed with the people that he was helping. He had like found meaning in what he was doing and he was peaceful there. He was peaceful in the purpose of who he was in that moment, of like he was able to help and these people needed help and that's all we're doing anyway. And I don't care if I'm in this camp or out of the camp, it doesn't matter. I'm helping these people. That's my meaning. And so that book is such a gift that, hopefully 99.9% of the people on this planet never have to understand what it's like. I wouldn't wish it on anybody to have every ounce of your physical freedom and autonomy, and they take your clothes and they take your home and they take your possessions and they take your everything. Everything physical is taken. And then what are you left with? And there's your true currency, because the real currency, the real value is nothing you could ever lose. That's where, again, I go back to Sit Around the Fire by Ram Dass and all them. Like, who you really are, it has nothing to do with what's manifesting around you in the physical, except for when you believe that that's an extension of you. And so all of this, like there's several transits. Like I said, there's a lot going on in Taurus, starting with the lunar nodes. Holy moly. And before I continue with the transits, if you like this, can you give it a thumbs up? Awesome. Thank you. So the Taurus transits, like I said, like it's like jam-packed at the time of this new moon on May 19th. And the lunar nodes have been in Taurus and Scorpio, the North Node going through Taurus since January of 2022. They entered at 29 degrees Taurus, 29 degrees Scorpio, and have been moving across Taurus for the last like 16 months now. And they move on into the next signs in July, this summer, here in a couple months. And so that is one where the Scorpio South Node has been helping us to release attachments to old ways of sourcing our power. That's a mouthful. We're releasing our attachments. We're letting go. This doesn't serve me anymore. And as much as I would love to fix it and be able to carry it still, I don't think it's best if I just let it go. So we're releasing our attachments to the old ways of sourcing our power. So the old ways are typically what we were taught, like what we had modeled for us when we grew up and possibly in past lives, if you go there. Those patterns of sourcing power have been building for a really long time. And so letting go of them and crafting new ones and all of that, it's been a deep excavation since January of 2022 of all of these roots of how our power dynamics work within ourselves and with other people. And that whole time, the Taurus North Node on that end of things has been pulling us like a magnet into the center of ourselves, into the inhale and the exhale and the simplicity of the well-being that is natural for us. It's urging us to, the Scorpio way is much more fighting it out and merging with another and consensus with another, agreement and harmony with another, merging with another person to get what you want. And on the Taurus end, you already have it all. That's a quote from Sit Around the Fire. You know, you couldn't possibly be greedy because you already have it all. That's what he says in there. I love it so much. So that Taurus North Node has really been drawing us in to our inner well-being. And I think it's fascinating. Again, this is why it's so interesting that this is the first, we're flipping the lunar cycle so that we have the full moon first and then the new moon. And at the time of the new moon, just before that, 3 days to be exact, before the new moon, May 16th, 2023, we have Jupiter entering Taurus. May 16th, 2023. Jupiter covers about a sign a year, so it takes 12 years to get all the way around, meaning it hasn't been in Taurus for about 12 years now. And those are 12-year cycles that begin typically, like there's a couple different ways to think about it. Like for mass consciousness, a Jupiter through Aries is kind of the beginning of a new Jupiter cycle, a new 12-year cycle. But really for each of us individually, we're also going through our own Jupiter cycle that begins with our Jupiter return. So like for me specifically, my Jupiter's in Taurus. So, later, more in like 2024, I'll have my Jupiter return, and that'll be the beginning of my personal 12-year Jupiter cycle. But we all kind of started one like in December of 2022 when Jupiter made its pass through Aries very, very quickly. It freaking ran through Aries. And that has been like, do all the things, like all the opportunities, all the exciting things. And it was moving so freaking fast. And then Jupiter hits Taurus, and it's going to go into Taurus. It's going to do a retrograde back into Taurus, and then it's going to keep covering Taurus, and it's going to be in Taurus solid for a year. And that's where like all of this expansion that Jupiter promises and all the excitement that Aries brought with it, it's like, yes, all of the opportunities, and that is exciting, but Taurus knows that there's only right here, right now, and there's only a limited time and space and resources for taking opportunities. So let me make sure that I'm going to work on the best one. Let me make sure that I'm going to prioritize which of these is the most valuable, and I'm going to start there. So there's like a pragmatism, like a realistic evaluation process and a resting that says you don't have to do it all, right? Like you only have to do what you want. You only have to do what you personally feel you need to do. And so get really clear and get really certain about what's valuable for you, what's worthwhile for you. So Jupiter, May 2023 to May of 2024, it moves in, it's like sitting at 0 degrees during this new moon. So like just in time for the new moon, freaking wild. And we also have, this is another one that we have Mercury retrograde, which isn't so much, I don't think, let me double check actually. Yeah, so it's come out of its retrograde and moved forward a few degrees at the time of the new moon. Actually, that was a few days. It's come out of its retrograde at the time of the new moon. I can't think of it. Hang on, let me fix it. Here we go. That's another Taurus thing. They really like to be certain. It has come out of its retrograde. Okay, now we're certain, and we know that Mercury retrograde is over by the time we get to this new moon, but it's also happening in Taurus. So like Mercury went all the way up to almost Uranus, almost a conjunction with Uranus, and then it turned back around and went back to almost a conjunction with the North Node. And then it's going to station direct again just before this new moon in Taurus. So there's so much happening like in the first decan of Taurus, like the first 10 degrees. There's Jupiter sitting at 0. There's the North Node that's at like 2 or 3 degrees. And then there's Mercury that's at like 5 or 6 degrees. And so all of that, plus you have Uranus in the mix that's like in the middle of Taurus. And then you have the moon and the sun at 28 degrees of Taurus. So you have Taurus just like freaking lit the hell up. And this feels to me, like I said, new moons are beginnings, but this one feels like a culmination of a lot of things that have to do with every ounce of the beautiful work you've been doing over these last 16 months with the North Node moving through Taurus, this is like what did you get from that? Like, what was the value that you were able to harvest during this transit as far as like knowing your worth in a more solid way, knowing your inner peace more personally? What new strength, because that's what it gives you, what new strength do you have access to? What new roots into your own solid ground do you have? Like, I'm picturing this, like this tree that over the last 15, 16 months with the North Node going through Taurus, this tree has gone from like a flapping in the wind kind of palm tree thing to like an oak tree that has just like no give in it whatsoever. And that in and of itself, like not being flexible and being rigid, is again one of the shadows of Taurus. But with the North Node going through Taurus, that's what we're leaning into, is being more rigid, being more sure-footed inside of our vessel, being more rooted during the storm, of like, let whoever's emotional storm happen around you as much as it has to, and the tree just kind of like waits it out. You're just doing your thing. Yeah, that's amazing. And that reminds me of a story from yesterday, which I cannot believe this happened the day before I have to do this, because it did feel exactly like that. Like, and that, with the new moon in Taurus happening May 19th, it's like 2 months until the nodes are going to change signs. So again, this feels kind of like the home stretch of like what we're meant to get out of this nodal cycle. This is really bringing it into focus as far as like, where else are you needing to kind of like claim and root into your own security? Like, where else is somebody else's emotional turbulence pushing you around and dictating things for you? That's kind of that balance between Scorpio and Taurus. It's like, am I up for emotional manipulation or not? And people are allowed their attempts to manipulate you, like they get to do whatever they want. They have free will. I get to do whatever I want. I have free will. And so this situation yesterday, it was a customer who felt hurt by a decision that the manager of my store had made. And, I'm sitting there looking at it like, he made the call and she's mad, and I don't want to go in there. I really don't. She's so mad. I don't want to walk into a storm on purpose. I'm a Taurus rising. I'm a peaceful creature. But I also was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to leave him completely unprotected. Like, I want to lend my strength and my deep roots of my security to this situation. And what happened was, for a few minutes, he was outside when she got there. And so I went and talked to her first, and we were together for a few minutes. And I would say I definitely got the brunt of it. But that's exactly what I did, was just stand there with my roots, knowing that this storm isn't me. This storm is happening around me. I'm just the tree. I'm just standing here with my roots, listening to what she's offering. And the more I listened, the calmer she got. I did not interrupt. I was too scared to interrupt, to be honest with you. I just listened. I was like, she's mad and she's in the volcano erupting, that like deep scorpionic pain that will lash out at other people. She's in that. And there's no putting the lid back on the volcano. So at a certain point, you have two options. Like, either you can jump in to the pool of lava, you could like get sucked up into the tornado and get carried away with their emotional storm, or you can stand there with your roots in the ground and wait it out. And you will be left standing. The storm will pass. It's the same as weather. Our emotions are the same as weather. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if kind of the entire month of May, I'm actually kind of glad that we're doing this so early, where it's like the end of April, so that I can say this part about the entire month of May promises one of the clearest mirrors for our own emotional baggage that we've gotten to look at in decades. And I say that because of this end of the North Node cycle where the Scorpio South Node is kind of doing its big finale. We have this new moon, we have the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th. Like, it's easy to possibly be afraid or to like be scared of this mirror. Like, typically what we keep hidden in our unconscious, what ends up being our emotional baggage, is that for a reason. And to have to look at it is typically it's typically painful. And so I don't want to sugarcoat that, and I don't want to, be misleading. I don't want to wrap what I'm saying in fluffy, pretty language. What I'm saying is that I do believe the month of May is going to be emotionally turbulent, emotionally volatile. I wouldn't be surprised if more than one volcano erupts during the month of May. There's just a lot. There's a lot of pent up energy that needs to come out. That, like, ew, gross. This is so gross, but this is what it is. Oh God, when I was in high school, I worked at a vet clinic, and on my first freaking day, the vet calls me out there. He's like, "Hey, Carly, come out here. I need help." He had a large animal and a small animal practice. And so he was out in the large animal area. He had a cow in the chute, and the cow had a beach ball on the side of its neck, like just a round lump that's like this freaking big coming off the side of its neck. And I didn't know what he was going to do. And he's like, "Here, hold this." And he has me holding this bucket like up to the side of it. And he takes a scalpel and he slices down, and something that looked like curdled chocolate milk, did not smell like, it smelled like something dead, came out of this abscess. And that is what we have emotionally. It's like an emotional abscess that, in order to heal an abscess at a certain point, like, I'm pretty sure the beginning is to kind of like see if it's going to clear itself up naturally, see if your immune system can fight it, and like whatever. It's like a big infection, basically. And eventually you have to cut it and clean it out. You have to like open it up so that it can drain. And from there, like, you pack it, and it's like a whole healing process of like what happens to, like, again, picture that emotionally. Like, dude, like, to open you up, dump out all the gross stuff, and then you're just kind of empty, but still a little infected. But once you're empty, the real healing can actually happen. Like, the mending can happen. Your immune system can take you from there and move you to healthy. But there is an expulsion of that infected energy that has to come out. It has to. And so it's not about putting the lid back on the volcano. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. But more like, I'm seeing like, stack your vertebrae, put your shoulders on top of your hips, and stand there and be present. Is there blood? Is there fire? If not, I'm okay. Like, Scorpio South Node is some serious shit, where there's a reason so many of us are susceptible to emotional manipulation, because it's really hard for somebody to point nasty emotion at us. Most of us will be like, "Okay, fine, I'll do whatever you want. Like, just stop treating me like this." And this is the end of that. This is the end of that. This is where we begin to stand tall while they direct whatever emotional storm they have to have. And you stand solid in your peace. You don't have to dive into the volcano. You can root into yourself and wait it out. And maybe there's some damage to you at the end of all of that. Storms break trees all the time, but you break off a limb, the tree is still there. It'll keep growing, it'll keep going. It may not have that piece anymore. That's nature. That's rolling with the natural cycles of things. That's another piece that I really wanted to lay in here. One of my favorite Taurus keywords and concepts is the concept of patience. I love it so much. The concept of patience. And Taurus, I would say, I could go through, I'm going to lay this down first because I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. Like, I could go through and I could talk about what Aries patience looks like, what Taurus patience looks like, what Gemini patience looks like. For example, Gemini is extremely patient when it comes to learning new things and absorbing new information. They will go and go and go and go and go if they're getting to absorb. There's like so much patience with learning that goes along with Gemini that a lot of other signs don't have that. So it's not like Taurus is the only patient sign. That's not what I'm saying. But I would assert, me personally, I ranked them. I gave them a ranking as far as I do believe Taurus to be the most patient sign. And then I would say Scorpio, and then I would say Capricorn. I would love to hear. What do you think? What do you think of my ratings? And what would you put first, second, and third as far as like the most patient signs? And then the least patient signs, I put Gemini and Aries. And double whammy if you have a sextile between them, because that's like the kind of the, oh my gosh, I just saw like a bathtub drain, it's like the bathtub drain is unplugged and like there's no amount of water that can fill that tub. Like the Gemini Aries, it's like right now is the only thing. And so anything that requires like no, it's going to take a while to unfold. It's like, nope, never mind. I don't want that. So that's my experience with those signs. But yeah, Taurus, like, why are they the most patient? And what is patience? Like, what are we doing here when we're being patient? And I would love to hear like your experience with patience and what you think it means or what it means to you. Because as this is funny, as I understand patience, it's understanding. That's all it is. Like patience and understanding. Understanding equals patience. Patience equals understanding. Like they are the same thing. It's like Taurus isn't so much patient as it knows how things grow in the physical. It knows that when you plant a seed in the spring, it's going to take months for that seed to grow up out of the ground and then make a plant. And then that plant, once it's established and healthy, is going to make one ear of corn or whatever it is, whatever kind of plant you planted. And so that process takes time. And Taurus, like, it's not that they're patient, it's that they're like, I only planted the seed yesterday. Why would I go look for it right now? Why would I try to harvest my crop right now? Like, of course, I'm not going to do that for three more months or 6 months or whatever it is. Like, it's a deep level of understanding that creates patience. And that's also not to say that you can't so this example this morning on my walk, like I started up on this hill, like right by my house, and I can see where I'm going is like that hill way in the distance. And I know it takes me about 20 minutes to walk there. And I'm like, it would be like standing on this hill and demanding that I'm going to be on that hill. And it's like Taurus understands that like that's never going to happen. That's not realistic. It's not practical to think that you're going to stand here and then in the next instant be standing here. I know because my phone counts it, that's about 2,500 steps to get up there is, you take the first step and then the second one. And if you keep doing that 2,500 times, then you can be on that hill. And then you take those 2,500 steps and then you can be back home. So it's an understanding. And so, yeah, like I don't so much hear Taurians bragging about their patience. I hear other signs talking about their impatience. And same as, patience equals understanding. Impatience is a misunderstanding of like how long something takes. If you want it, do you actually want to go through the process of getting there? If I want to be on that hill all the way in the distance, do I want to make the 2,500 steps to get there or not? And that's it's a very simple concept. So That's not to say, though, that I can't take those steps more efficiently. Like there's ways that, like, again, Taurus would never skip a step. Like I wouldn't skip the step of planting the seed because, like, oh, I just want to get to the harvest. Like, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. You got to do all the steps. But you can take those steps faster. That's possible. You can look at, like, is there something about my step taking that I do or don't need to do? Like, or maybe I could go a little bit faster, or I could, try it like this or whatever. Like, that kind of thought doesn't necessarily come the most naturally to Taurus, because honestly, like, why are we trying to go to that point on the hill over there anyway? Like, what is the point? Why is that worth it to want to go over there? It has nothing to do with getting there. That's the other thing that Taurus, like, really understands, is like, it's not about being on that hill. It's about the steps in between. It's about the beautiful field of clover that I got to walk by this morning, that I have a short on my channel. If you should check it out, it's purple. And I wish you could smell it. I stood there and I just looked at this, like, big field of this purple, and I just smelled it for like 2 or 3 minutes. And, like, I'm not going to the hill. I'm not, like, walking. I'm not doing my 2,500 steps, but it's not about getting there. It's about being on the step, being in that moment of, like, oh my gosh, look at this, smell that. That's amazing. And then to be so full of the beauty that I had to share it on my channel. It's like, it's for the journey. It's not for the destination anyway. It's for the joy along the journey. It's for the beautiful experience of being in your body, in that moment, in that process. And so this promises to be a beautiful new moon for those of us that are able to find peace inside of ourselves. And for those of us that depend on peace with others in order to feel peaceful, this will be a little bit of a wake-up call as far as, like, what's left to work on in the couple months that are left of the North Node going through Taurus and the South Node going through Scorpio. And there's no, like, getting it done. This is just the next chapter. This is just the next step in the process of, like, this larger unfolding that is called life. But it's, yeah, it could be like that moment I had where the reason the world can sometimes feel so inadequate is because you already have it all. And you're looking for it out there instead of feeling it where it is. And, like, oh, like, it has the potential, the highest frequency of this new moon has the potential to be a wellspring that is truly limitless of peace that you personally can swim in. And as you do, as you are there, that will be what emanates out of you. Like, this is the kind of turning point moment with all of this in Taurus, the North Node having done its thing, Jupiter about to take the baton and run with it and kind of, like, blow it up even more, what's already been started. Like, this is a turning point of bringing peace to the earth. Like, there's so much divide. There's so much division and so much opposition. And at the end of the day, we are all the same. We all have a body. We all have a life. We all are living out of our own unique vessel and set of experiences. We have so much more in common than we could ever have different. And this is a time where we get to choose peace on purpose, because that's who we are and that's who we want to be. That's where we want to put down roots, because that's what feels good to us. Nobody's manipulating us. Nobody's making us do this. Like, we're doing it because feeling peaceful on the inside feels good. So this is my invitation to you to don't worry about the forecast, the emotional turbulence out there. It has nothing to do with you. And as much as possible to turn inward, turn inward, turn inward, turn down towards your roots, reach into the earth and hold on for yourself. Let everybody else take care of themselves to as much of an extent as possible, right? You got small children, like you got to take care of them too. But so often, we take care of all kinds of people that are not our responsibility to take care of. Like, I'm talking out of personal experience. This was what my life coach and I worked on for like 100 minutes on Monday, of like digging into me wanting to be responsible for managing the relationships with like all the people in my life, regardless of how close or not they were to me. And it's like, no, all of that could be redirected back into where your true security and currency really is, that well of peace that is inside of us. And nobody else can take that away. They can try, they have their right to try. They have their right to express themselves however they want. That's the beauty of free will. We're all completely free. So they can do what they want, but we get to root wherever we want. So I feel pretty good about that. I feel like that was a good treatment of this energy and the kind of various ways it could play out. It's going to really depend on, how kind of, I would think, like, how has your entire Taurus North Node cycle gone as far as like since January 2022? Like, how has that work been going for you? And this will be, kind of a moment where all of that running along the surface gets like brought up onto the surface just for a little while, so that we can see how far we've come. I think, like, I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be. Like, we're going to maybe see some shit hit the fan, but we're going to get to look at ourselves and be like, damn, she's a cool cucumber. Like, look at her. Oh my God. Like, 2 years ago, that would have freaked me the fuck out. Like, take note of your progress and pat yourself on the back for even 1 millimeter more peace than you would have normally mustered in that situation, a couple years ago before this transit. So be kind to yourself and gentle with yourself. Again, regardless of how anybody else wants to treat you, you get to decide what kind of treatment you deserve, and you set the example of what kind of treatment you deserve by how you treat yourself. And so this Taurus new moon, if this is something of a newer concept for you, may be a good time to set an intention about what kind of treatment you will and will not accept. Again, first and foremost from yourself, and based on how you're treating yourself, others will they just naturally follow suit. So yeah, let it all be an opportunity to deepen the peace within us. I thank you so much for being here. I am going to hang out for a little while and read the chat. You guys really put some stuff in there. I'm so excited about that. And anybody catching the replay, if you have questions, I would love to hear from you as well down in the comments. Please like the video if you've enjoyed this treatment of the Taurus new moon. I really appreciate that. Definitely helps the channel. And with that, let's see. Oh my gosh. So Taurus placements, Sun at 2 degrees, Saturn 10 degrees, Mercury 20 degrees, and Venus 23 degrees, all in the 10th house. Wow. Like, the words came to me, beacon of peace. You are a beacon of peace. And it's like the light shines the brightest in the darkness kind of concept of like, hang in there, please. Because you and the way you handle the emotional storms that come around you, it does serve you, absolutely. But especially with it in the 10th house, there's like countless other people who are watching what you're doing and taking note of what you're doing and are like, oh my God, I didn't even know that's possible. I didn't even know I could do it like that. I didn't know you could get attacked and not defend yourself. Like, you're demonstrating something that people are absolutely keeping an eye on what you're doing. Hello. Oh, another Taurus North Node. Yeah, I've been attracting a lot of Taurus North Nodes since the North Node got into Taurus. Oh my gosh. Natalie's a 0-degree Taurus North Node in the 7th house. Any insight on the 0-degree placement? Um, so my rising sign, like I said, is at 0 degrees of Taurus, which means my descendant is at 0 degrees of Scorpio. And I did not know this, but this was part of what I learned from my life coach, was that 0 degree Taurus Scorpio axis is like a gravitational force all its own, where like you're a magnet essentially for pulling to you exactly what you need for your soul's inevitable transformation, the transformation that you set out to have. And it's like, through the 0 degree Scorpio side, whatever is unconscious within you is powerfully, powerfully attracting whatever is a reflection of that. That's where that gravitational pull, like you're constantly pulling mirrors for your unconscious self. And so that's where I don't know if shadow work is like a consistent theme of your experience, but for me, until I learned how to do shadow work and until I learned that like other people are a mirror for me, they're just my reflection. It's not about like fighting it out with this other person. They are just representing the part of me that's unconscious, and I can let them go at any time and just look at it here. And so shadow work was like a revolutionary concept for me to, again, reclaim my power and my energy from the other and to put it back inside of myself. And that, as my ascendant descendant, and I'm sure for you, same thing as North Node and South Node on that 0 degree Taurus Scorpio axis, it's like that reclamation of power and reclaiming it for yourself, like not a Robin Hood style of like take from the rich, give to the needy. It's like take it from them and give it to you, and put it back in you. Like put the empowerment back inside of yourself. Oh, talk about easier said than done. But again, shadow work and figuring out that others are just the mirror. People who look like they're holding our power, they're just representing that we're not holding it. They don't actually have it. We still have it. We're just not holding it, if that makes any sense. It's like in the closet somewhere, like haven't even looked for it. We're just like, see, they have it. And it's like, no, they don't. Like they're just showing you that you personally currently aren't using it, but you could be. That's why the mirror is there. I believe like mirrors show up when we are personally ready to embody and bring into our consciousness that which the mirror is reflecting to us. That's why they're there. That's why they're reflecting it. Oh, wow. Dude, that's impressive. Vital Empress says, I am claiming all is well despite the blood. That's next level. Like how I was saying, like, is there blood? Is there fire? No. Okay, then you're fine. And that, seriously, that's like badassery right there, because that's, yeah, that really is the leading edge of where we're going. Like I I'm not a Christian, never have been, but I just saw Jesus on the cross and like, you know, there can be blood and there can be fire, and all is still well. It really is. And that one again, I feel like that's a big one to wrestle with, because when we're in the physical and we have a vessel, pain is personal. And when someone else on the outside is causing us pain, it is so natural in animal nature to attack them back, to run away, to fight back, to just go full primal on their ass and whatever else. And you don't have to, like I'm practicing a scenario right now where I have someone in my world who is very emotionally volatile and has been kind of eruptive. In a way where like that fire burns people. And I've been practicing my next like the next time it happens, I've been feeling it intuitively, like the volcano's like starting to rumble, and I'm like, oh god, here we go. The explosion's coming. And I've been practicing what I'm gonna say as far as like, you need to go home. We'll talk in 1 week. You need to go home. We'll talk in 1 week. And that's all I have to say. In that voice, probably. Because just because you're a volcano doesn't make me a volcano. I'm not full of whatever's bubbling inside of you. Like, dude, it seems like, that's one key note that I will say for the Scorpio South Node journey for me. I've never cried so much in my life. I'll bet I cried more since February 22nd, 2022, the day I started crying. More since then in these last like 14 months than I have in my entire lifetime combined. That there is so much bubbling, so much that wants to bubble up out of the underworld and up into our right here, right now reality. And the more you're keeping that shit in, like that's where you get an emotional abscess. That eventually we're gonna have to slice that sucker open and get all this out of there. He's got his hands like in there, like gross. Cry it out, please. Please. When it's little and it's like all the time, like not all the time, right? Like I don't cry every day anymore. There was like several months at the beginning, like I said, like February 22nd, 2022, for a few months after that, where it was every single day, sometimes all day, just like the waves of crying would just come. And usually I didn't even have a reason of like, why am I crying right now? I just felt like it. Felt like I had to. If I didn't, I would explode. And it's like, yeah, you got to let it out. Otherwise, you'll explode and then it'll come out. Like you can either let it out when it's little or some guy with a knife can slice it open for you. Like, ugh. That's where, again, I don't know why I do know why people are scared of Scorpio. And I think mostly it has to do with like, I don't want to cry. That's weak. I don't want to do that. And it's like, dude, get over it. Letting yourself cry is one of the strongest things I've ever done. Like, dude, really sink down in the agony that Scorpio is in and cry those tears and feel your heart breaking apart and tell me that's weakness. Because it's not. It's so not. But I think we're going to get to see, especially with the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th, I think we're going to get to see the ones who have been bottling. Because eventually the volcano will erupt and you can only bottle for so long. So if you are seeing this before that, I would say, like, if you have any desire to cry, lean into it. The more, the better. The more you can burn off proactively. That's like my mom the other day. She was talking about how she was like trying to make a left-hand turn. And so she was stopped and like the oncoming traffic, like she's waiting her turn to get to make a left-hand turn. And it's a 65-mile-an-hour highway that she's trying to turn off of. And here comes this truck behind her that doesn't look like it's slowing down. And so she thought to herself, like, what could I do? Like, oh my God, like if it doesn't slow down, like what am I going to do? And she's like, the only thing I could think of is I would floor it and I would like get going ahead as much as I could. And any amount of speed that I have going into it will lessen the impact once it hit me. This was her like conclusion. That's what she was going to do, is just floor it. I'm like, oh God, you're such an Aries South Node. Just go fast. But what a brilliant analogy as far as like, if you can lean in to burning off whatever emotion is wanting to bubble up, that will lessen the impact of especially the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse, but really just the whole month of May. In general, there's a lot happening that, again, these emotions are coming. And so as much as you can lean into letting them come out in their own time, any amount of bottling will bite you in the ass. I just Scout's honor, promise you. Taurus words would be comfort and security, though most people think Taurus is just stubbornness. So stubbornness in Taurus is one of my favorite myths to debunk. Stubborn is what we call people who are immune to manipulation. That's my take on that. Persistence, patience, and stodginess. So interesting. So I get you, persistence and patience. Like, yeah, like the again, the understanding that says if you want something, you're gonna have to take the steps to get there. And stodginess, I don't even know if I know what that means. Like, let me Google. This is my Gemini patience to learn new words. Stodginess, the quality of being heavy and making you feel full very quickly. Interesting. What is the meaning of stodginess? Heavy, dull, or uninteresting, tediously commonplace and boring. A stodgy Victorian novel. Yeah, from the outside, right? Like from the outside, it might look like that. But again, that's Taurus being immune to pleasing anybody who's not them. I'm not putting on a show. I'm not like, this is not a show. This is me enjoying my life. Like I cut the steak or the bite of food or whatever, and I put it in my mouth and I close my eyes and I chew. What that looks like on the outside and what it feels like on the inside are two completely different things. And the highest frequency of Taurus energy is living purely for itself. It has nothing to do. It's not trying to entertain anybody. I have Jupiter in Taurus exactly square my moon in Leo. So I often am putting on a show. Don't let my style confuse you. But Taurus all by itself, like it's not trying to be flashy. It's not trying to be anything that would attract other people because, again, it knows that that has nothing to do with its true well being. Mm. Mm. Oh, wow. So Natalie says, I so appreciate these reminders of Taurus and being. My Scorpio North Node in the first house and Pluto in Scorpio first house pulls me into all things Scorpio. I am in the midst of learning how to be grounded in myself. Ah, yeah. Gosh, and like that's another one of those instances where like Scorpio would fit so much better in your seventh house and like Taurus would fit so much better in your first house. Like I feel like mine is like the easy one to be Taurus on the first house side. Like when you put Taurus in your seventh house, that like, and a North Node in Taurus in your seventh house. I'm going to just tell you like what's coming through me right now because like this feels totally channeled is like marrying later in life or like finding that relationship later in life because the person that it is who will take your spiritual development to the next level since your North Node is there, the that like the person will require your patience. The person who you couple with will be stubborn and grounded and immune from emotional manipulation. They will not have your bullshit at all. They will be peaceful and they will not fight with you. They will stand there like a tree and let you rage around them. And it will be the least satisfying thing a Scorpio South Node could ever have because, like, honestly, when someone launches an attack on somebody, like, the least gratifying option is for the recipient of the attack to just play dead, to just be still and like unaffected, basically. And so, yeah, like I don't know where any of that came from because I haven't ever thought about that placement before, but there's that. I think there's like a grounded within yourself and like finding your peace within yourself, like because you're in the North Node and in the seventh house for that. It's like the relationship that eventually like, or maybe all relationships, I would be very curious, like, but I can definitely see one where there's like a tipping point where again like they don't accept your old patterns. They force you to have your resources coming from inside of you. Like they're not going to provide it. They're providing their own piece and you're responsible for yours. Is kind of like what that configuration is saying to me. North Node will conjunct my sun in June. So you must have your sun at the very end of Taurus. Patience. It's just understanding. Oh, I love that. The two most powerful warriors are time and patience. And that's why, like, that reminded me of the bull and how like bullfighting has really like kind of co-opted the image of the bull as like a growling and snorting or like whatever, like charging beast. And like, that's not a bull. Like if you've ever seen a bull standing in a field, it just pretty much stands there unless it's going to mount a female or something like that. Like it's got to be really worth it if it's going to exert its effort. It's mostly just peaceful. It's mostly just happy to be there, chewing on this grass, rubbing on this tree. Like it's just kind of in itself. But that to say, like, again, the two most powerful warriors are time and patience. Like there's a conservation of energy that what is the right word? Like lethargy, like immobility, like the rootedness, the standing still. Like there's a not wasting energy on things that are not valuable. And especially with the South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus, like there's that reclamation of energy from the squabbles with other people and just put it back into ourselves where we can grow stronger roots because we have that extra energy that we got back from them. Now we have even more. Now we have stronger roots. And so every time we reclaim power from other people, our roots get a little bit stronger. And time and patience, like if you just wait, like one of the most powerful strategies in the entire world, and this might be my Mars and Pisces talking, but I'm telling you, waiting solves problems. It brings peace. It brings the perfect moment. Waiting is a tactic that is lost on a lot of signs like Gemini or Aries or whatever. But like Taurus and Scorpio, both, Capricorn, same thing. Like they are in it for the long haul. They're in it for the true value of like, what are we really doing here? What's possible? How do we time and guide our actions and our steps so that we get exactly into the most valuable place we can be? That's another place where Taurus can be kind of misunderstood because, like, most valuable place we can be, there is a cultural definition of what is the most valuable thing. And that does not mean that that's what Taurus is doing, and probably not. Taurus has its own unique definition of what is the most valuable thing. And so it's not going to be chasing things like, buying the newest car, buying the newest watch, or like whatever, like spending their hard-earned resources on these status symbols. That's not really valuable. It doesn't really get you anything. Like you think, well, it gets me the admiration of other people, but as soon as you have it, that's what I'm talking about. Like manifesting shit like that, it's hollow. It doesn't actually give you anything because your body is the lottery winning that you were hoping for all along. Reflecting and projecting resonates completely. Seeing that big time through relationships, Taurus North in the seventh house. Absolutely. Empowering myself has been the hardest thing. Oh, I feel you. I feel you there. And maybe yours is harder. I don't know, but like I resonate with that a lot. Lifetimes of pouring myself into others. Feels like I'm turning towards an empty bucket. Oh, that's so poetic. Natalie, that's so beautiful. I mean, I know it's sad, but it's also very well said. And then, yes, it's so confusing. And thank you for that insight on a future partner. I want to say, pouring ourselves into others. And like, like I just saw like when you're in like a car accident and it's a little bit cold and you're kind of in shock and you're shaking or whatever, and the ambulance people, they come and they put one of those like those warming blankets around you, like the shiny metal kind or whatever they are. Yeah, like I just like want to put that around you of like lifetimes of pouring myself into others and like warm you back up on why we do that, like when we cling to other people, it's because we don't think we can survive on our own. I had to really feel like, do I want to say we can't survive without them or we can't survive on our own? And I would say we can't survive on our own. I did a pattern of relationship hopping from the time I was like 12 until, I had like a couple years where I was single in my late 20s. So, it was like a solid like 16, 17 years of like get out of a relationship, and within a month or two, I'm back in another relationship for the next year or two, and then get out of that one, and then less than a month, I'm back in another relationship. And so I really think when we do that, when we cling on to the relationship, it is like such a lack of confidence in our own ability to provide for our own basic needs, you know? And like, I just want to start with like, at a certain point, clinging on to relationship and giving our power away is a survival tactic. And if that's the best you can do, kudos for keeping yourself alive. You know, like there's no shame in however you survive, however you get by, like navigating those circumstances. Like there's no right way to be. There's a, what is the best that I can reach for in this right here, right now moment? And so, you know, like as you recognize that the bucket is empty, you know, like the confidence to meet your own needs, it's like, how could you start small? And I would even say, you know, a beautiful way to start small on anything that like you feel like you need to get some momentum going is to take stock of where you're already doing it. Where are you already, you know, taking care of yourself? Where are you already prioritizing your inner peace? Dude, you've been hanging out with me for like an hour. Like that's one of them. It's like you took the time to tune into yourself and spend some time reflecting on your patterns. And like that is big work. That's big. That right there, all by itself. So, you know, I don't want to argue that your bucket's empty. It's not empty. Like I'm going to say, while it might look mostly empty, there's something in there. There's like a wet bottom in the bucket. Like that's, you got momentum going, right? Like you're on the path. And as you go on the path, like as you take the step and then the step and then the step and then the step, like the bucket will get a little bit fuller and a little bit fuller and a little bit fuller. And, you know, this is the beauty of resourcing yourself like that and pouring into your own bucket a little bit more every single day. And the beauty of being so full of your own security that eventually the bucket starts overflowing. Like, again, talk about a magical manifestation that, like, you have so much peace and so much security that you're giving it away. You don't need it. You have enough. Like, such a beautiful thing. And that overflowing bucket, you know, some of you watching this, I can tell, like, you're sitting in the overflowing bucket and it's sloshing out every which way. And you're just like, you know, you're a fountain of peace. And like so many of you have that going on. I can feel it in the vibe around the channel. And there are others who are wanting that experience where, like, you know, the full bucket feels like it's on the hill all the way over there. And like, I want to be in the full bucket. I want to have the overflow to give to this person and give to this. Like, but from that place, like you're giving so much, but none of it is costing you anything because it was just the extra. I don't need that. I mean, it fell on the floor anyway. You pick it up and give it to that person. You can have it because I already have my full bucket. Like I'm not missing that. And the Scorpio end is where like you pour until the bucket is empty. You give it all to them. And it's like, no, you got to keep the bucket full for yourself. But then eventually you get to this place where there's the overflow. So like if the bucket's mostly empty, the full sloshy bucket is all the way over there. The only way to get there, and it's so simple and so beautiful, is to put this foot out and then put this foot out and then put this foot out. And like, again, if you're just starting that journey or just going to like get some momentum going, such a beautiful way to start is to take stock of where you're already doing it, where you're already pouring into the bucket, you know? And there's two different ways that we can also work on filling the bucket because, you know, maybe the bucket is so empty because about an inch above the bottom of the bucket, there's a hole. So like when you fill the bucket up this much, then it starts draining out the side and it like, can't really get past this next level. And so that's where I feel like the Scorpio South node is really working on plugging those holes where we're draining our resources back into other people. I know that's something that like I really went through a lot, like in my getting going in my self-care journey, like for 4 years before I finally committed to like daily self-care forever for the rest of my life. For 4 years before that, I would do like daily self-care for like 30 days and I would be feeling really good. Like I'd have a couple inches worth of water in my bucket and there was a hole right about there. As soon as I felt good, I needed relationship. I wanted somebody to reflect that to me. And so I would take, these two inches of water that I got and I'd go give it to somebody and hope that they would pay me back something that was equal, maybe even more valuable, whatever. And like eventually after those stutter starts and after like, pouring myself into others over and over and over again, eventually I realized like the hole in the bucket was the idea that once I felt better, then I would feel better. And the realization that closed the hole in the bucket was no, this is going to be every day. Every single day, you're going to scoop up a cup of water, however much you can get in the, hour, 2 hours, whatever you have in the morning, and you're going to pour it into your bucket. And then tomorrow morning and the next morning for thousands of mornings until the day you die, you're going to pour water in your bucket every day. There is no end point where you'll no longer have to pour water in the bucket. And that closed that hole. And that, I'll celebrate 7 years of daily self-care in July. And at this point, I would say I am in a full bucket. It overflows. That's why I do this. That's why I do my sacred circle once a month. I host spaces where I let my overflow go on to people who want it and who value it. And that exchange of offering something that is so extra to me, like I'm not missing it, then I really have the joy of getting to give it to someone and see them light up because they needed it. I didn't need it. Giving it to someone who needed it, like, then that's the joy. That's like, again, just like deepening your own inner peace, like that well of peace that comes from inside of you. So it's such a journey. And Taurus understands that the journey happens one step at a time. Taurus is smelling the roses along the way of whatever step they're on right now. Take an extra second with your cat in the morning, like, extra pets, like extra pets on your dog, extra moment with your coffee cup and like really smelling the beautiful smell. Every single one of those moments where you detach from whatever anybody else is doing and you feel the enjoyment of your own personal experience, that's how you dump water in the bucket. So like it doesn't have to be some fancy thing where like you sit and meditate for 2 hours every morning. It can be a moment before you eat your food or a small blessing that you say every time you get a glass of water, like to be grateful and enjoy what is pouring water into the bucket. So as often as we can do that, even if it's 10 seconds at a time, we're taking the next step towards the full bucket. And I think this Taurus new moon is going to set us straight a little bit as far as even more ways that we could be reclaiming power from other people and putting it in our bucket instead. So, you guys, thank you so much. This has been so amazing. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps the channel. I really appreciate it. I will be back with my next Friday live stream in 2 weeks on May 12th. And I'm not going to tell you what we're going to talk about that time because, like I said, maybe at some point I'll skip one so I can get a little bit closer back to like doing these right before it's going to happen. If you like me doing it this far ahead, let me know and I can just keep on keeping on. Yeah, thank you so much. It has been my pleasure to be with you today. I look forward to being with you again soon. Until next time, I do hope that you take such good care of the beautiful being that you are, and so will I. Bye. Thank you.